specific milestone was reached on August 22, 2026, when the Starlink 1520 mission lifted off. This flight marked SpaceX's 100th orbital mission of the year. The vehicle departed from the California coastline, specifically Vandenberg Space Launch Complex 4 East. This site allows rockets to fly south over open ocean, placing payloads directly into high-inclination and polar orbits. That Vandenberg flight sits adjacent to a separate record achieved just 2 days later. On August 24, a different launch, Starlink 1049 out of Florida, marked the 100th flight of the year specifically for the Falcon 9 rocket. The slight discrepancy in the count exists because the company's total orbital tally includes a heavy lift mission from April, where a Falcon Heavy rocket carried a telecommunications satellite into orbit. Executing this unprecedented volume of flights requires abandoning traditional, custom aerospace engineering. These records are the direct byproduct of a standardized, industrial-scale system designed for extreme repeatability. To see how a rocket launches every 48 hours, we must work backward from these milestones to the recovery infrastructure built to handle this specific cadence. The launch cycle relies on absolute procedural uniformity. At 35 minutes before liftoff, ground systems begin loading rocket-grade kerosene, known as RP-1, and liquid oxygen. Both propellants are super-chilled to increase their density, allowing the vehicle to pack in more total performance. At the 7-minute mark, the engines are chilled to prevent thermal shock. Inside of 60 seconds, the flight computers take over final checks and pressurize the propellant tanks, leading to the automated engine ignition sequence at T-3 seconds. As the vehicle clears the tower, the 9 Merlin engines propel it through the lower atmosphere, navigating maximum dynamic pressure, the moment of greatest mechanical stress on the ascending airframe. Once out of the thickest part of the atmosphere, the first stage booster cuts its engines and detaches, using pneumatic pushers to clear the upper stage so it can begin its return trajectory. Seconds later, the single vacuum-optimized engine on the second stage ignites to continue pushing the payload to orbital velocity, while the protective payload fairings split apart and fall away. By locking every single mission into this exact procedural sequence, the company eliminates the operational friction that plagues custom flight profiles. Strict standardization ensures speed. While the payload heads to orbit, the first stage reorients itself. It executes a series of retro-propulsive maneuvers, an entry burn to slow its descent through the atmosphere, followed by a precise landing burn to touch down vertically. Managing an orbital flight every 2 days requires distributing the workload. Active pads are geographically split between Vandenberg in California and 2 complexes in Florida. The recovery infrastructure is similarly distributed. Boosters return to coastal concrete landing zones or touch down on drone ships stationed hundreds of miles offshore. This recovery pipeline allows individual vehicles to achieve massive flight counts. By late August 2026, booster B167 successfully completed 37 trips to space and back. Once a soot-covered booster returns to the integration facility, technicians no longer rebuild the vehicle. They run standardized diagnostic checks, inspect critical components, and prep the rocket for flight. A launch every 48 hours relies entirely on combining this deep fleet of flight-proven hardware with a geographically distributed network of launch pads, allowing multiple missions to be processed simultaneously. Physical hardware solves only half of the equation. The operational cadence operates strictly within a federal regulatory framework that dictates how often and under what conditions a commercial entity can legally fly. Authority for these flights runs through the Federal Aviation Administration's Office of Commercial Space Transportation. Their mandate is not to guarantee mission success, but to issue licenses ensuring each launch protects public health, property, and national security. Simultaneously, the United States Space Force manages the physical federal ranges. They provide the necessary weather analysis, physical security, and launch safety oversight at locations like Vandenberg and Cape Canaveral to keep the airspace clear. The final driver of this cadence is payload demand. While the vehicles carry national security and commercial satellites, the vast majority of these flights are dedicated to deploying thousands of nodes for the company's own Starlink internet megaconstellation. The operational engine hits maximum velocity because this heavy internal demand for orbital deployment perfectly aligns with a highly streamlined federal regulatory process. The August 22 mission lifting off from California served as the direct result of synchronized hardware, regulatory cooperation, and extreme procedural discipline. The milestone represents the permanent transition of orbital launch. The industry has moved away from bespoke engineering projects and fully embraced an automated industrial pipeline. By 2026, the primary engineering achievement has shifted from the propulsion of the vehicle to the orchestration of the logistical system surrounding it. This operational rigor standardizes access to low Earth orbit, establishing launch as a continuous and predictable utility. Completing 100 missions in 8 months defines a new operational baseline, where expendable hardware and multi-month launch gaps are no longer economically viable. If you found this breakdown valuable, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to understand the mechanics of modern spaceflight.